This evening, the topic that I'm going to talk a little bit about, what we can discuss. If you have questions about this, I'm sure there are going to be questions around this particular topic. Called doubt. There's an ancient tradition in Zen tradition where there's actually a teaching that is kind of a deliberately encouraging you to have doubt, to have as if you've swallowed an iron ball. I'm not sure where they got that image at, but I didn't live back there, so I don't know where it could have come from. But the idea is to have a doubt, to just doubt. And the modern day teacher Sokuzan, the Korean master who died a few years ago, would encourage his students, and it was even the title of one of his books, to have only don't know mind, only don't know, which is a way of encouraging you, us, all of us, any of us, his students, to not continually fill up that area of the mind that seems to not know, or seems to, you could say, doubt, with a bunch of ideas or solutions based on analysis or judging or evaluating and so on. Of course, in our lives, in our practice as practitioners, as meditators, people who are endeavoring to strengthen, increase their awareness, you trying to increase your awareness so you can see what is true beyond opinions and ideas. We all know how well that works. Opinions, ideas, thinking just ends up being kind of a swapping of opinions somehow. It can be entertaining, can be interesting. And but my way of understanding this would be to, when doubt arises as a meditator and as one working with your awareness, is to don't do anything with it. Don't necessarily go into covering it up with something or trying to push on it or get rid of it. Or for that matter, add more to it, more doubt upon top of the doubt, just the original not knowing, that original insecurity. There's even, to go into another teaching, there's a book titled by Pema Chodron, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, called The Wisdom of Insecurity. The idea that to be without any particular defense is one of the prerequisites for wisdom to even arise. By doing sitting meditation, by sitting down, facing a wall, you're basically looking at your mind, without any particular support, without any particular validation, substantiation of anything that's arising or falling away. So it could be very uncomfortable. Sometimes meditation is called voluntary dissatisfaction. Your life is already dissatisfactory in so many ways, and then you, crazy person that you are, as you tell your family and friends, yeah, I'm going to go sit down and look at a wall all day long. So what's that going to get you? It's always the merchandising mentality, tit for tat. Well, I'll do this to get that and do this to get that. Spiritual path, or a path of awareness, is about basically seeing what is true for yourself fundamentally. It is about seeing what is true for yourself at the basis. How do you do that? How do you get the mind, the awareness, to drop below this ragtag thing that's going on that's called ego? I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad, it shouldn't be, it should be. They shouldn't, I shouldn't, should I, shouldn't I? Constant chatter that does what? Covers up the doubt, covers up the insecurity, covers up that mind, that not knowing mind, which is what happens to ego when it's not getting fueled. when ego is not getting fueled by success, or for that matter, by failure. That also fuels ego in a strange sort of way. Quite often, one of the ways that shows up is through guilt. You do something, and instead of just seeing that the way the situation arose, we did the best we could. Maybe others are saying, you let us down, you did this, you did that, you should have, you shouldn't have. And maybe you do feel guilty about something. And I would say that guilt about anything is extra. And not only that, it's a strange form of self-centeredness, that you have so much say-so and so much power about your life that you could completely control things in such a way that you would never do anything wrong or incorrectly. It's very easy. If you notice, how easy it is for people who are born, as they say, with a silver spoon, to condemn, analyze, judge others, judge people. We quite often are pretty good at that, taking others, as it is said in the 12-step program, taking others' inventory. So the kinds of doubts that seem to arise are ones that usually have some kind of an underlying story about them. There's something, I'm having doubts about this. Maybe you're having doubts about your practice. Maybe you're having doubts about your meditation teacher. Maybe you're having doubts about your Sangha, your community. Maybe you're having doubts about your job, your family, your wife, your children, or whatever. Could be any number of things. And probably the most intelligent thing to do in any one of those situations is damn little. Don't do much. Wait. Hold back and watch, because nothing lasts. Everything changes. One of the basic teachings of Buddhism is impermanence. Everything that arises goes away. Everything that begins comes to an end eventually. So observation practice is much easier, much more accurate, much more incisive or intelligent, if there's a strong awareness behind it, so that we aren't always counting on our analysis and our judgments and our evaluations and our discriminating between this and that, like sifting through things. Sometimes just bringing a lot of awareness to that allows us to see the way in which we should actually be possibly sifting through things, or maybe not. So the negative side of doubt, to talk about it that way, doesn't feel very good. Feels maybe scary in some sense. It might feel like we're wasting our time because we're not clear about something, and here we are investing all this time and expense in something, and we have doubts about it. Shows up in lots of different ways. But doubt without a story, without some kind of a explanation around it, which is passion, one of the three poisons in Buddhism: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Doubt that is there without doing anything with it is more like space. It's more like just the open spaciousness of things. Not such a bad place to be. And there's also the assumption or preconception that if you were to meditate a lot and become realized or attain Buddhahood, that you would no longer have any doubt. Maybe a lot of disappointment there. Questions at this point? Sheldon?
How is doubt different from disbelief?
Doubt is something that happens to you, and disbelief is something you do. Doubt is just, you just have doubts. There's a feeling of not knowing whether something is substantial or not, or whether it's true or not, or not knowing what it is. So it has more of an open, intelligent, and even sane quality to it. Whereas disbelief is outright ignorance, as is belief. I believe this is true. We hear people use this constantly. It's all over. It's rare to find some conversation where someone won't use the word, well, I don't believe that. Or, do you believe that? And you might say, well, I don't know. Or you might say, yeah, looks true to me, or not true. All information, all evidence is partial. Every fact is partial. You can look at any situation and tell me what the fact is, and I'll show you where it's not the whole story. As who's a fellow, the radio announcer that used to talk about?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey, that's right.
So that's old folks get that.
Yeah, I'm a Paul Harvey ventriloquist. Someone told me that I sounded like Paul Harvey, and I thought, oh my God, Paul Harvey. Since you.
Is there a difference between doubt without a story and not knowing?
It's very similar. I think not knowing is has even less of a rough edges to it, whereas doubt has some rough edges where there's always that. We're always just kind of looking out of the corner of our eye to see how we can get rid of that. Whereas not knowing is more of just the way awareness looks when nothing is happening. Just the way awareness feels, you could say. Yes?
What are the rough edges without a story?
Doubt.
What makes them rough?
Because there's always that little feeling that we're about to see something different, or it's about to go away, or there's something could be done about it. That's why the question comes up. Isn't that, you think doubt, and then because Anne is the one that suggested the topic. That's what I'm looking at her. She has doubts. What are your doubts about?
It's like an insecurity about the next step or the steps that I'm taking.
Yes.
So how does awareness, can I have awareness at the same time?
Of course. Absolutely. Ask more.
Oh, I think of awareness as obliterating doubt and insecurity, but that's not always the case.
It's not ever the case.
Can I believe in my awareness while I
don't believe in anything?
Doubt. Yeah, right.
Don't believe, don't disbelieve. Don't believe, don't disbelieve. Or don't believe, don't disbelieve. How's that? Or don't believe, don't disbelieve. Is that working good? I doubt it.
Show me one more example of that.
Okay. Belief and disbelief. Sokuzan.
Do doubts ever go away?
That's a good question. What does go away is the doubter. And it doesn't actually go away. It's seen through that there never was anyone that doubted anything. But the doubts may arise and fall away because it's just the nature of relative truth. So it's like doubts may show up, you're not concerned. Doubts may go away, you don't do any guesswork about that. You don't write a book about it. The time when doubts went away. I bet I can get that published. Yes.
What does certainty look like when doubts are still present?
Same thing.
How so?
Because you don't, because it looks like the same, it's just on the other side of the same thing. Certainty, doubt, certainty, doubt. You can't have certainty without doubt, and you can't have doubt without certainty. But if you're trying to get rid of doubt so that you can get certainty, we're back to relative truth again. We're back tit for tat and plus and minus and trying to accomplish something. It's called spiritual materialism. More?
Is there a type of certainty that's not on counterbalance to doubt?
Yes.
What is that?
It's not separate from doubt. It's not at war with doubt. It's a deep understanding. It's called wisdom. Wisdom that sees a fundamental nature that there's not two separate things anywhere. If that's the case, then there can't be right and wrong. Yes.
Where does certainty come from that doesn't come from a lack of doubt?
The lack of doubt isn't so much a lack of doubt, but it's just that doubt doesn't hold any more sway than certainty does. They're just concepts. So it's seeing the fundamental nature of things. We are at war with ourselves, with our world. Some people I talk to are so terribly at war. They say they want to be kind, be generous, be helpful, but what's happening is they're at war. And so that's why it seems to be necessary for anyone who wants to really solve this conundrum, this problem of what does it mean to be a living being? What does it fundamentally mean? Sit down the way we do it here. There's probably other ways. Sit down, hold still, sit down and watch what continues to crank up lies. And just watch that until you can see through it. Until that seeing through, it comes when you get up off the cushion to go into your everyday life, that seeing through has become so sharp, that prajna, which is the Sanskrit word for the wisdom which is crossed over, that prajna becomes so sharp that it can't, nothing can hide from it. It sees. It may not proclaim, it may not say, I see everything. I used to be stupid and unenlightened, but now I'm really smart, now I'm enlightened. It's not that kind of a thing. And if you hear that, then that's politics. Actual wisdom doesn't need a credential, doesn't even need to be acknowledged. It's not concerned with fame or fortune. It's not concerned with success or failure. There is no success or failure in that because why? Not separate. More questions? Kevin, go ahead. Go ahead, Kevin.
Are you saying that as long as we see doubt and certainly clearly that we're free to experience those things without being affected by them?
Paraphrase yourself.
How are we to see doubt and certainty clearly without being affected by them?
Trying not to be affected by it is problematic because there really isn't anyone to be affected by anything. And so affected or not affected is not so important. But if you try to put energy into doing something in such a way that you don't get affected by it, this is a very, very hidden form of self-centeredness. Not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that to try to do something so that we're safely accomplishing something, there has to be a fundamental surrender at the base. There has to be a turnaround at the base of consciousness. In our tradition, it's called the eighth consciousness. A revolution at the basis of the very area where ego sprouts. The awareness has to sink down, sink down, sink down, sink down, sink down, or go up in, up in, up in, or go through, until it sees the basis and it sees the delusion and it flips. And it might flip fast, and you might see it and see it and see it and see it and keep seeing it and seeing it and seeing it and seeing it. And then one day you wake up, or one day you walk across the street and it's just different. There's been a revolution at the basis of consciousness, and there's no longer anything else other than just this. Nothing is hidden. Everything is revealed from then on. This doesn't mean you can see through walls or the exact distance the nearest ice cream parlor is. Although I happen to know that.
Does it mean that I'll still feel doubt, uncertainty, and sorrow and guilt and all that
Gonna come,
stuff
gonna-
that comes along with being
Yeah.
human?
Yeah, all that's going to come, but it's not nihilism. It's not a resignation to all that. No resignation going on. But the pain and the suffering may come. It just doesn't happen to a person anymore. So therefore, you may be sitting here, you may be sitting in this room and feel some difficulty come and go, but it doesn't belong to anyone anymore. And the people around you who are suffering, who think that they are somebody, then they have suffering and they compound it by continually taking that apparent self and trying to get away from the suffering, and sometimes at the cost of other people. They're trying to justify it or condemn it. They just constantly are at war with that self-centeredness. But someone who has realized is not concerned with doing anything.
Is that what is meant by the host within the host?
Yes. Host within the host is a line from the Hokkyo Zanmai, the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, which is basically talking about just a way of talking about the absolute realization. Yes,
A question from Bailey up in Grand Rapids. Actually, she has
Bailey.
2 questions.
okay.
The first one, it seems that the widespread assumption about doubts is that they can help us avoid potentially harmful situations or avoid failure. Can the content of our doubts ever actually help us navigate?
I think somewhat. It's the clinging to the doubt that's difficult. Anything that arises could be potentially helpful. Anything is usable in some way or another. It's the clinging or the fixation on it that tends to make it problematic, because when we start to fixate, then the awareness starts to close down.
Her next question, is that fundamental surrender you were talking about the same as enlightenment?
When did I say something about fundamental surrender?
Turning about at the basis.
Going deep, deep, deep.
Oh, that's not surrender. Well, maybe it is.
What is that?
What is what?
What she's trying to get at with the idea of surrender or going deep, or
It's seeing very, very deeply that there isn't a solid person there, that all identity is discontinuous. It starts out, the way it starts out in our everyday life is to show you that there's no solid self anywhere. The way we experience this is like if I say, just pick someone out. Who can I pick out? Let's see. I think I'll take you. And if I say to you, Kevin, you're a stupid idiot. Why didn't you close the gate? Or why did you break the light bulb in the other room, or anything? Or else if I say, then you have feeling. Even sitting here making that up, you can feel a little bit of that. A little bit, just because it's me. But if I say, Kevin, you're one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. You have such a great smile, and you have a just beautiful mellow sound to your voice.
it's easy to get me that way.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're a Leo. I mean, what can I say? Pretty hard to knock a Leo down. It's like, slapping a lion. They're going to like get their feelings hurt. Not. So I'm just saying that if I did that with anyone, it doesn't mean that that's ever going to go away. So it isn't like looking to be where nothing ever bothers me. I'm never insulted by anyone. I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what we quite often hear from. How many people have said how many people have you heard say, well, I don't really care what other people think? It's just like, what? Yes, you do. I care what people think. What's the difference? Is there a difference?
there's no one there.
Yeah, there's no solid, there's someone there, but it's not solid. So therefore you have the feeling, you can still have the feeling you're not like some kind of stone zombie, wooden Buddha, no more feelings. I meditate, no more feelings. No, you still have that. It's just that the fixation is not there. So that it doesn't clamp down on anything. Everyone in this room and everyone that's watching, if you just think of the last intense emotion you had and see what did you do with it? Did you clamp down on it? In other words, did you try to push it away? That's fixation. Did you try to fluff it up and get more of it? That's fixation. Did you justify it or tell yourself stories about it, add to it? Fixation. Did you shut down on it? I'm not going to look at that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. Fixation. Just different versions of doing anything that is not separate. If you treat it like it's separate, it's going to function that way. And it's been going on for countless eons. So just that little bit of sensitivity, we feel that, and that seems to fuel some kind of self-centeredness that needs to stop from being criticized or needs to grasp at being complimented. We need to win. We need to, we all have almost a knee-jerk belief in that kind of stuff. Not wrong. So that's why it's difficult. It's not about getting rid of that and being this person who has no emotions. It's seeing that there's not a solid being there. This is when compassion for others really begins to arise. Until then, it's always going to feel like somebody's trying to rip us off. How about me? How about me? Shouldn't I think about myself? What am I doing helping other people? And then there's the other way of going out. I'm just going to help everyone else. This is another way of avoiding who you are. People who are always helping. They're just constantly helping others. And the other people who are going the other way. I need to take care of number one. I don't have time to volunteer. But this is why Buddhism is called what? Middle way. Not too tight, not too loose. Sheldon.
I hear the word doubt, my mind wants to think that there's an argument.
Again?
When I hear the word
Yeah.
doubt, my mind wants to think that there's an argument that whatever is coming up, I need to think it's either true or not true.
Yes.
I doubt the truth of whatever it is. And I don't know, that's conceptually difficult for me to see it.
What's your question?
Is that different than what you're talking about?
Is what different?
That view of doubt, that it is about having an argument or about an argument.
I think it's similar. Sip more. What else am I going to say? Sip more. Please. I'll pay you. No, I can't do it. Thought that would work for a minute. That's not going to work. Yes. Good question. Any other questions? Kevin.
You used a phrase to describe this condition. It's not what is the phrase used? Not continuous?
Discontinuous.
Discontinuous?
There's discontinuous identity because the identity keeps coming and going. The who we are kind of comes and then it's staggered around a little bit and then it goes away and then it comes back and we attach ideas and causes conditions to get attached to that. It's very complicated. It's like being in a room, like you're a piece of felt and you're a room full of Velcro. It's really just you get stuck on everything. Everything is sticky. Go ahead.
Does that understanding, or does that phrase discontinuous identity have anything to do with the body itself, the physical reality that we experience?
Body and mind are not separate. They just look like it. This is the mind. There isn't anything but mind.
Is there any other way to explain discontinuous identity?
Well, it's the way things manifest and the way consciousness manifests. We don't know where the original turnaround was, but at some point there was some kind of a turning inward, which fastens on some kind of separation, and it begins to show up as this situation that we're in, being a human being. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened at the beginning, assuming there was a beginning. I mean, you could speculate on that. You could, I think, physicists speculate on that kind of thing all the time. Big Bang, all kinds of things.
Do you doubt?
Yes.
What do you doubt?
I doubt that I'm a good teacher. I doubt that I really know how to teach very well. That's happened already today. But that's all I do with it. I don't do anything. I don't try to become a better teacher. That's foolish.
Can we do anything about our doubts?
Yeah, you can, but don't do anything with them. Don't do anything with anything. Those things come and go. Even that doubt that you asked me about it, so I said so. But it's not I'm not confessing to anything. Just something that shows up, and it goes away, comes back, shows up. And then other times I might think, well, I guess I do all right. And then it goes away, and then I doubts. But I'm not concerned with it anymore. I'm no longer concerned with maintaining anything, including this human form. Yes.
What does the ego do with the doubt?
Makes a big deal out of it. Thinks you have to get rid of it. Thinks it means something. Well, if that's true, then that's because of this and this, and that's because and because and because. Don't do because. Don't do why. Why means because. Okay, end of the investigation. Now say what? See how many circles that takes you in. Yes.
Is a doubt just another piece of partial evidence?
Yeah. Jeff, you have anything?
Not all the way, just stuff bubbling, but not up
Yeah.
to the surface.
Jack, you have any questions?
That was a good answer. I like it. I feel the same way.
Okay, that's fine. Yes,
From Sokuzan up in Traverse City.
yes, Sokuzan. I heard you gave a good talk last night, Sokuzan. Is that true? You have doubts? I heard from Brittany that she gave a good talk.
Sokuzan asks, is there a way to strengthen our practice when doubt seems to be discouraging it?
Yes, do it anyway. Do it anyway. When you're having doubts about your practice and you're meditating, then just meditate anyway. That's why it's necessary to have a schedule. That's why we have one here. If you live here, you better be sitting when it's time to sit. But if you're not, then I like I've told lots of people, if you're living here and basically you're here because you're sincere, you want to practice, and so I trust you. You're going to do as much as you can. But if you just can't, then that's also awareness. But yes, no matter what, do it anyway. Sometimes just beginning to function in the middle of doubts actually breaks a lot of things apart. Lets us see more clearly how one thing causes another, leads to another.
What do you mean by just function?
I mean, whatever's happening, don't make it into some kind of personal thing. Don't add anything onto it. If doubts arise, it's time to sit. Don't let the doubt take you somewhere else or interrupt your practice, your discipline. That's the fancy word that a lot of people think that discipline means a bunch of rules to follow. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means observing forms. You observe a form, you observe a form. So there's certain forms you have to do in order to do this doshi position. And I'm yet to see anybody do it right. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Yet to see anybody do it exactly correctly. Except me, of course. But of course, I never do it. I make other people do it because I'm no good at it. You know what I'm saying? You follow me? Yeah. Andrea.
Doubt and guilt should be treated in the same way.
In the sense that don't do anything with them. Don't try to get rid of the doubt or get rid of the guilt. Just bring it. It's like having a skunk and a raccoon. It's not exactly that way. I'm going to use those examples. So that's what showed up. And, just bring a spotlight on it and just look at them. You know the difference. One is a smelly animal and one is a burglar. Because of the mask, that's how you tell. So just don't do anything with them. They function differently. They operate. They're both involved with one of the three poisons called passion, but they're also involved with the other two. There's a kind of aggression there that doubt has a kind of aggression towards yourself, but also guilt has a kind of, it's like the opposite of pride. It's a similar kind of energy that tends to fluff up the ego that has failed, has done something wrong. So we tend to feel guilty. And what I'm saying in that situation, however you may experience that, is don't do anything with it. Don't try to get rid of it or say, well, I shouldn't feel guilty. Or for that matter, I should feel guilty. Don't do anything with that. Anytime you meddle around with what is spontaneously arising out of causes and conditions that are absolutely uncountable. If you meddle with it, it's like, why? Why would you do that? You have no say-so. You have no say-so. You do have say-so, but not in that way. Yes, Michael.
I think you answered it. I was going to say, be more specific about what you mean by don't do anything with it.
Yeah, just feel it. Just feel the texture. You feel guilty. Just notice it. See that, and don't necessarily add to it. If thoughts arise around it, which they usually do, just watch them. They'll start to crack off and fall away, and the guilt will still remain sometimes, and it'll even come back. Guilt without any story around it is a very interesting emotion. Without anything substantial, just like fear, without knowing why, or like depression. We call it. That's why they call a negative emotion. Like that, depression, because it's a negative feeling without what? Story. If you have a story, then you can call it something else. I feel bad because I didn't invest in McDonald's in 1959. Actually, I don't feel bad about that, but I bet you guys do. You guys weren't even here in 1959. Yes.
Another question from Bailey.
Certainly.
She asks, are doubts about the path any different than doubts about anything else?
I think they can take on a different kind of flavor because the very path itself tends to bring up doubts without particular stories. So I think it can be, there's a similarity. It's like if you study to get a degree in microbiology and you start to have doubts of whether this is really what you want to do. It's a kind of doubt about something, relative situation, but meditation practice, you're working on a more fundamental level with the nature of consciousness and the nature of your mind. So you're not so much trying to figure out something you want to spend your life doing that you can generate a livelihood that you'll enjoy doing. So it's a little bit different there. Whereas this is something you're trying to understand who you are, what your life is really about. What does it really mean to be a living being? What is that? How does that sit with you? Do you want to just live the rest of your life, driving a truck, or teaching people to skydive, or being a pastry chef, being someone who tests the products of the pastry chef? So looking at that closely, I think that when it comes to a meditation practice, spiritual path, whatever that may be, doubts that come up there could be looked at. You're probably going to have those before you even start something like this kind of a practice. Should I even do this? Is this something I should do? Should I study under? Should I listen to what this person's saying? How do I know that what he's saying is rings true, is going to be fundamentally helpful to me? And I would say, take your time.
It seems like fear and self-doubt work together. It's part of the same thing.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with what you're talking about?
Got a cat.
The door.
She's on blowing his
She's
nose.
blowing his.
Oh, Chiazon's blowing his nose. That makes sense. Yeah. He was trying to just, huh?
A very angry cat.
Angry cat. Okay. What's your question? About, is doubt and fear the same thing?
Yeah, it's doubt, self-doubt and fear, they're kind of
Yeah.
come.
Well, doubting something is more like fear that you're trying to neutralize or cover up or paint, a different color. Whereas, so it's something it's like a fear that's kind of disguised or it's not really direct. I think if there's fear, you can kind of change that into something that's like doubt that you could probably, it's not quite so scary. So it's more like ignorance. Yes.
Could you say that fear is maybe an attachment to a doubt?
I suppose. Good. Yes.
How do we determine, like, fear? When we talk about fear, there seems to be a
Yes.
quality of fear that is just human, something built in.
Like fear of a tiger.
Right, fear,
Okay.
the
Run.
flight fear.
Run away.
Pardon?
Run away.
Run away.
Hide.
How do we discern the difference of that and then what Sheldon was talking about, doubt and fear?
It's just more subtle. I mean, it's just different levels of the same thing. I mean, you're actually afraid of, you should be afraid of a tiger. But the kind of fear that generally we're working with is something that is fear of seeing what is fundamentally the truth, seeing that we actually don't really exist like we thought we did. If you knew who you were, if you fundamentally understood what this whole shebang is about, life and death wouldn't be that big of an issue. It would be some, but not as big as it sometimes is when people come close to death or when someone passes away. We feel upset that they're leaving us. More about us than them. Yes. Yes.
I'm worried about that.
What?
I'm worried about that.
Go ahead.
Doubt, self-doubt and fear.
Keep the question as simple as possible. Otherwise, I start to get into the same mush you're wading around in. Go ahead.
So let me think about it.
No, I think you should ask me. I think you should ask me right now. Ask me. What is it? What is
Well,
it?
okay, I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
So,
good.
so self-doubt can come from fear. So you're afraid that you're not going to be adequate, or you're not going to be able to do something.
You're basically afraid that there isn't anybody. That's what's really
That's
behind
the truth.
Huh?
That's the truth.
The truth is you're afraid that you aren't anybody.
But the problem with it is that's not what you believe,
Okay,
right?
I don't know. You believe there is
You
somebody
believe there is somebody
who needs to change, be
who's
better,
going to fail,
who's going to fail.
so you're afraid. You're not
Yeah.
even going to try because you're afraid.
Sounds good to me. So stop it.
So,
How do you stop it? Sit a lot and find out who you are. I really mean it. So, I mean, I don't know how to express it other than just to continually tell people, sit a lot. Sure, an hour a day is good, but sit more. Find a way to spend some time out of your busy 24 hours in a day. You're gonna sleep 8 hours probably. Got another 16 hours. Take a couple of those hours and practice. Sit down, hold still, watch what moves. Sit down, hold still, and watch the way the mind keeps cranking up things that run this machinery of doubt and fear and self-deprecation, or whatever it is that whatever kind of merry-go-round that yours looks like. Round and round and around and around and around. If you try to stop it, that doesn't work. If you try to justify it, that doesn't work. If you try to ignore it, that doesn't work. The only thing that seems to have any workability to it is to bring as much awareness to it as you can, so you can see the way that you're perpetuating, just kicking the wheel. Yes,
Why does stopping it not work?
because it's an illusion.
How is it an illusion?
Because you can't stop it. More?
Why can't we stop it?
Because it's an illusion. It's interesting to go into your mind like that, go into your mind. It's unreal. It's unreal in the sense of it doesn't have anything substantial to it, but we scare ourselves with this, and we coax ourselves into some kind of warfare, some kind of pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. That's why it's not necessary to stop the three poisons. You don't have to stop the passion, aggression, and ignorance. You just have to see that there's no solid being behind it, and then those things start to die down on their own. When you see the fundamental delusion, the fundamental misunderstanding is mistaken identity. We think we're a solid being, and we think that other people are solid beings. That there's a world out there that is a solid other. So the first part of the teaching trains us or teaches us that there is no solid self or ego. That's the first part of it. Then the next part we work on, that's empty of a self. Then we work on empty of an other. That there's no solid other. Just looks like it. Kevin?
Is it possible to have a deeper understanding of causes and conditions?
Yes, that's what meditation will help you with. Brings you down further and further down into the way this causes this. It allows you to see how that works. Yes. Then it allows you to see how you're grasping at something that is unreal. We're grasping on something. We actually believe there's something there.
By sitting, so you're saying by sitting we can have a better understanding of the cause and conditions, but by having that better understanding, aren't we developing stories in order to organize causes and conditions?
Sure.
Is that helpful? to see where things begin and where things end, and
It's helpful to see that, yeah. But you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to build a case up to actually build up a pile of rocks to push into things to make that thing that you want to get rid of go away. It seems to be necessary to use the intellect, use the mind, and use what is being talked about here to support through concepts and ideas and discussion and information to support us so that we can go back and train our minds. Go back, sit down, hold still, just like we did earlier, holding very still. And just watch what moves. And that experience can be take on lots of different forms. You can feel like you're thinking too much, or that your mind is going like, like a herd of buffalo, or it might feel very flat, like nothing is happening at all. But any number of things could be going on there. You could just be thinking about your knee hurts the whole time, or you could be thinking about how you want to change jobs, or you need to be sure and stop at the casino because you're feeling lucky. It could be almost anything. All kinds of things. They're all just thoughts.
also throughout the evening, I've been thinking about doubt in certain ways. Not only has it come up as a problem, but also it seems like it could be a tool in this sense that we use it like beginner's mind. Is that something that I can take away from this talk? The idea of the feeling of doubt as a beginner's mind.
It's beginner's mind. That's another way of talking about it. It's just you're here, you don't know what to do. If you're a beginner, you don't know what to do. You're not sure. But okay, I'm here, now what? Kind of thing. That happens if you practice meditation enough, and if you devote yourself to awareness practice, that both gets stronger as a beginner's mind, and also what also gets stronger is you really can't repeat it. It never really feels exactly the same. It feels like something you've never done before. Because if you start to get used to it and get good at it, then you're building up some kind of a structure, credential around what you're experiencing.
So you can't get good at beginner's mind.
No. It'd be an expert's mind then, yes.
So some of these square cushions are called a gamden.
Yes.
And I think you've translated that in the past as get used to it.
The word gom, den means seat, and gom is I think is part of a word. I'd have to ask a translator, but I was told years ago that is a Tibetan word that means getting used to. Get used to this seat. So you get used to it. You could say that's might go in the opposite direction of a beginner's mind. Maybe it's an expert's butt.
Or a nice ass.
I'm not going there.
Is that the same thing as practice?
Sure. Yeah, it's a repetition, yet we can't fundamentally repeat. Everything is slightly different each time. It's like this, the form I was talking about earlier. If you've done this form hundreds and hundreds of times, you begin to, or any form, hundreds and hundreds of times, you realize that it's always a little bit off. It's never, timing is a little off, or the tone is a little off, or something is off, or just about when it's just about perfect, then you wave the incense out and it snaps off. Or else or you go to wave out the candle and you knock the candle clear across the room and there's wax all over the thing. Or you, like I did a little while ago when I got up and I tried to turn the fan off and I bumped into the clackers here and one fell on the floor. And boy, was I embarrassed. And I'm surprised that somebody, Chazon or somebody, didn't scold me. It's interesting how when something happens like that accidentally, if people are, we notice we get a little bit embarrassed over any kind of a mistake or bumping into something. Sometime when you're all by yourself and you're is everybody here eat peanut butter sandwiches? Yeah, of course. So you're buttering your peanut butter sandwich, or you're putting your peanut butter on, and you're kind of distracted, and it slips, and it falls down face first on the wing, like that. Watch what goes through your mind right at that moment. If nothing goes through your mind, you're enlightened. Well, not exactly, but you're making something that I very seldom capitalize. What is it, Jason? Progress.
I thought it was the 3-second rule.
No, you don't. You don't want to eat it. That applies to everything but peanut butter and ants. If a peanut butter sandwich falls on a little row of ants, is it still okay to eat it? If it's, is that what you meant? But the idea is look. That's a good example. You can think of others that when something happens untoward, or something that you didn't expect, or it's a little bit out of the ordinary, watch what the mind immediately jumps into some kind of discursive thought about it. About you might swear, or some kind of action happens in the mind. But it's also very interesting if you meditate a lot, you'll notice that when something like that happens, that quite often nothing happens in the mind. That there's just space there. It may not happen very often, but there is a spacious quality where you can't. It's like you can't be startled. And that gong up there ring. I can sit here and watch people, and if I see the arm swinging to hit the gong, and I look and I see somebody jump, then I know that person actually was not in the room. That person's awareness was in, Sumatra, or at the ice cream stand, or somewhere else, because they were startled back into so their mind was separated out of their body. Whereas if you can make a really loud noise, and someone doesn't jump because they were already here, they were already including everything. So anything, if you're already including things, then anything that comes out of the so-called unknown, there's plenty of room for it. It's like living in a gymnasium. Yes, Anne.
I've experienced that where I have not had a reaction to something that would have previously, and then time goes on and I will have a reaction. And so therefore I doubt my original non-reaction.
Okay, well, I can help you there. So what's happening there is you fixate on the non-reaction. But there's no difference between those two. Yes, there's no difference between those two. Just like there's no, this is why it's so difficult for ego, because ego thinks there is good and evil. It thinks there is hot and cold. And of course there is, but they're contrasts. They're not evaluations. So you would just see the contrast, but there would be nothing added to it like, gee, I just noticed that a contrast between how I didn't have any thoughts and this time I did have thoughts. I think I'm getting to that no contrast thing. So you wouldn't do anything. Yes.
So when you're at that point that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
you just drop it.
You don't do anything with it.
You just
Nothing
go, oh, I'm comparing, and that's it. There's nothing more.
No, you wouldn't say it. If you say I'm comparing, then that's more confusion.
Well,
okay. See what I'm saying?
Got me.
You
yeah.
cannot find the tail of that monkey. You can't find it.
But you kind of like burn yourself out then. Eventually, and
you don't burn yourself out. You see, there never was a self to burn. And if you see that, then you're fine. You can function, and then you can function like a complete saint and like a complete clown. Not different. Contrast, there's a big contrast. We can see the contrast. You can't come in here and wear a clown's nose and have everybody think that it's a halo. Of course, I haven't tried that yet. So. So what am I coming back to? Everything is always about awareness. When it comes to doubt, it comes to the idea of doubt. If you don't do anything with it, then that actually can start to break apart because it's not being supported by the three poisons. It's not being supported by hope or fear. Hope is the other side of fear. It's not being supported by it. So then when it starts to crumble, there's nothing left but space. And there's no comment. More?
Can it feel like insanity?
Yeah, it does. It does. It can very, very likely feel like insanity. That's why it's very necessary to have a teacher and a teaching and a sangha and a support system. So yes, it can feel crazy, but quite a bit of our life feels pretty crazy anyway. Some of the things that we go through and some of the things we go, that we deal with in our life are, we might not say that, but sometimes we have really, really very intense emotional things that could be looked at as craziness. Anyone else? Anyone else on the line? Okay, we can dedicate the minute. Thank you.
This way. I'll take it slow.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jio San Shi 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 Son Bu Sa Ho Sa Mo Ko Ja Ho Ri. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, its buildings, garden, and all adjoining areas from any and all dark or negative energy. Remove and dissolve any negative energy or devices. Fill everything and everyone with light. Please shield and protect with light our teachers, monks, students, and all practitioners of the Dharma, our families and friends from negative forces and energy from now on. Help us to realize the truth of the Buddha's teachings.